Patrick's Day, and I have my Irish sweater that I bought in Doolin 2 years ago, which gets a lot of compliments and conversations. I have a few jokes this morning. It used to be a tradition. I think, Dean, you tell a lot of jokes when you present here, don't you?
Robin made me.
Okay. Well, nobody made me do it. So a few Irish jokes as people are coming in. What do you call an Irishman that's bouncing off the walls? Ricochet. Which dog breed should you invite to your St. Patrick's Day party?
German Shepherd.
Irish setter?
Yeah.
Okay. What did the Irish potato say to his sweetheart?
I have eyes for you.
I only have eyes for you. Okay. Did you hear that Ireland is the fastest growing country in the world, or in Europe, I should say? Why? Its population is always Dublin. Okay, this is the perfect one for today. How can Irish people tell it's summer?
Patio furniture.
The rain gets warmer. And if you've been to Ireland or any of those islands across the pond, it's a lot of rain, right? It's rain, 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 rain. But it's warm, and somebody told me that when we were over there. We were there in the spring of 22, and the surfers at this coastal town called Lahinch, I said, so do you surf all year round? And he said, it's just warmer rain in the summer. It's the temperature and the water stays the same. When is an Irish potato no longer Irish?
When it's French fries.
Yes, when it's a French fry. Okay, how do you know an Irishman is having a great time? When he's doubling over. There's Dublin again. Okay, this is the last Irish joke. An American lawyer asked his Irish client, Finnegan, why do all Irishmen answer a question with a question? Finnegan replied, bollocks, what'd you think of that? All right. I have more jokes, but we'll see if we need them later. I'm Betsy Bertalik, and I'm your presenter today. We're finishing up this book, Don't Sing Songs to a Heavy Heart. And you have a sheet in front of you that has an overview of the chapters up until this point. So that's just your reference point, and you want to take notes on that, that's fine. We'll talk about books later and references, but I think we're all out of these books. If you still want to buy one, you'll have to talk to Mother Susan about that. But so we're going to be just focusing mostly on those last two chapters, which are on the back side of that sheet. However, I have to do a little music first because Dean set me up last week. And so I'm going to probably have to take this really heavy sweater off. This is a great sweater, by the way, if you ever need a good sweater for rainy weather.
Is it Irish?
Oh yeah, I got it in Doolin. Yeah. Okay. So you'll see a sheet in front of you with a song. It's called Keep Me in This Moment. I only had enough for two at each table, so if there's an extra one you want to grab, at the middle table maybe, or you just can share with somebody. So this comes from the organization that I'm now the music director for, called Threshold Singers, and we sing bedside for patients at hospice. Sometimes we go into homes, sometimes mostly we go to Kaplan House in Danvers. And so one of the things we do, which I think has been talked about in this setting with this book, is how do you prepare yourself prayerfully or mindfully before you have an exchange with someone that you're going to be a companion with through a tough time. And so we have a bunch of songs that address that help us. So when we come into Kaplan House, we sit in a rehearsal space, and the first thing we do is we center ourselves, and we are silent, and we just have a moment of quiet meditation. And then we'll sing a song like this, Keep Me in This Moment. And I know there are a lot of you who are musical out there, so you can perhaps help me with this. And the music is written there for those of you who read music. I think the expression is used in this book, and it's used in a lot of other spiritual practices. The phrase, be here now, right? So when we're with people, we're not distracted with something else, but we're in this moment. We're, be here now. So let me just sing it for you, and then you can sing along with me a second time. Let me leave behind all that keeps me from being in this moment, in this time and place, be all I need to be. Let me be in this moment so I can clearly see what this moment is asking of me. It's got it all in the song, doesn't it? It's all there for you. And so, would you join me? I know you've only heard it once, but you have the music in front of you, and if you would like to join me, let's just try it. Let me leave behind all that keeps me from being in this moment, in this time and place, be all I need to be. Let me be in this moment so I can clearly see what this moment is asking of me. And like a good chant or a song that you want to impress in your brain, sing it again. Let me leave behind all that keeps me from being in this moment, in this time and place, be all I need to be. Let me be in this moment so I can clearly see what this moment is asking of me. That was beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And I'm not going to take the time to teach you the parts because that's a different session. But when you have a song or a prayer in your heart, before you enter into that space with somebody, it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing to be here now. It's a good thing to just leave it all behind. And it might be a good thing to do, to practice with your person. I don't know how much was talked about praying with the person that you're with, and I think that has come up, but sometimes music can be a prayerful way of entering into that space with that person, or just your own prayer, or your prayer with that person. That creates what the chapter we're going to look at today is creating a safe space or a place. Creating a safe place. Now that chapter talks a lot about what that means, and so I was just wondering, when you hear that phrase, creating a safe place or space, what comes to your mind? Don't even think about what the book says. I don't know how many of you've been following along in the book, but what is a safe place? So just think about it. What would that be for you? Let's talk about that, right? What is your safe place or space? And I'll just start by saying I have someone that I've been companioning along with for several years now. And she needs a safe physical place to make her feel safe. And the last time I met with her, we met at Cafe Nero near the Whole Foods Market in Beverly. And that, for her, was a safe place. Why? She needed to be where there was a lot of talking around, but not too loud, and a place that was set aside that was just just two of us at a table. And, mentally, physically, emotionally, for her, that was a safe place and a public place. So what did you come up with? What would be for you a place if you were hurting or going through a crisis and you were going to meet with somebody? Where or how would that look? Yes, Paul.
Well, I think ideally it would be in the home of the person who is the host, the care receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Two chairs, closely set apart from one another, no interruptions, no music playing, although I guess that would be a bad idea. Maybe a window and have light come in.
Okay.
That's the best.
So Paul is saying, if you didn't hear that, Paul is saying that meeting in the home of that person, their own personal safe place, where you're sitting comfortably in chairs with light coming in through windows. So the home, somebody's home. Anything else? Yes. Bill.
Meeting at a time where the care receiver is reasonably rested and is not fearful of things like a particular cognitive decline that may happen in the afternoon or evening.
Okay, so when that person is feeling alert and ready to be with you, not sleepy or ready to go to sleep.
Or ready to wander off into dangerous territory as a function of cognitive decline.
Okay, so cognitively alert, whenever that time is best. Yeah, any other, and is that your own personal story, Bill? It'd be mine, I think. Yes, let's.
I think it depends a lot on the individual. I understand what Paul's saying, but I think there are people who would find, especially if you're new to the person or you don't know each other well, where maybe being in a public place, like you mentioned with your care receiver, would be less intimidating or less baggage laden, perhaps. So I think it's really individualized from that standpoint.
Okay, so you want to be attentive to the individual situation and that person. So there's no right or wrong about this. There's no cut and dry, and the book has a lot of suggestions and insight into that as well. Anybody else? Yeah, Meg.
Sometimes the face-to-face is a little too intense, and so walking beside each other might be helpful.
Yeah. So Meg is saying walking side by side and not necessarily face-to-face. Sometimes face-to-face is too intimate, depending on the situation and how well you know each other or what the intensity of the crisis is. And what a great picture of being a companion, right? Walking alongside. I'm just thinking of Jesus walking alongside the disciples on the road to Emmaus, or any other walking situation that you can think of. Yeah, thank you. Anything else? Susan, Mother Susan.
A spirit of trust between the two, which you have built.
Right, spirit of trust that's built between you is really key for feeling safe, right? And the author talks about this in the book as well, just that feeling of safety. Anything else? Yes.
I would not hear anything in a crowded place, so that would be a hindrance.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for some of us, a crowded, noisy place is just not going to work. Too much noise, or too many people, maybe listening in, or whatever. Yeah.
I like the walking side by side.
Yes, walking side by side. Yeah, it's great. I'm just picturing a lovely path in the woods. Yes, Jane.
All cell phones put away.
Ah, whoa, all cell phones put away. Yeah. Okay.
A real distraction.
Yeah. So no distractions as much as possible. Yeah, which is, you go back to that song, let me leave behind my cell phone. Or whatever it is. Yeah. Anything else before we move on to some other thoughts? Yes, Dean.
I have a son on the West Coast, not only separated by geography, but we haven't been able to connect closely throughout his life, especially. And we decided to take a week up in Maine. And we got up there, and he said, Dad, I'd like to just fill the car up with gas and drive. We went outside that morning, and he wanted to drive. I sat over there. And because we weren't looking at each other face to face, maybe, or whatever, but we ended up, and he wanted to get to the coast, looking out on the water. And we got out there, and I could tell you almost word for word how he just poured out his spiritual life, positive and the lacks thereof.
Mm.
We were there for about an hour,
Mm.
just opening up to each other.
So Dean was sharing about his son who lived at a distance, or still lives at a distance, and came to Maine as a destination to visit. And they got in the car and just drove and went to a beautiful place. And out of that came a wonderful conversation. So I'm just imagining that. It's wonderful, really. Yeah. And maybe you've experienced that too, where you've just get in the car, sitting next to someone you love and care about, and just driving. Something about that movement that kind of takes away inhibitions. Yeah. See, all these things are not in the book, just so you know. This is you, this is your experience, which kind of leads me to this little, I apologize for the tiny print that's but I want to read it because I feel like this book is great, as all the other books that are out of Stephen Ministries are just really skillful instructions on how to be with those among us in your community, or your workplace, or your family, how to be with people in whatever situation it is. Wonderful resources. And a lot of us have just benefited not as Stephen ministers to care receivers, but for ourselves too, and to learn how to receive the benefit of that from other people. So I was driving in my car, and I came up, driving in the car, and I just kind of came up with this thought. Some of this, all this that's in the book, presumes that you are all afraid and inexperienced with caring for others, that you just don't know what to say, that you've always been inept at saying or doing the right thing in the presence of one who needs companionship and compassion. Sure, we've all fallen short a few times and have had some missteps along the way, but you've grown, you've matured. You've learned something along the way about softening and letting go. You've learned something about dying to self, keeping death always before you with nothing left to lose in this life. All we have to gain now is love for one another. If you are like me, you've begun or are in the process of casting off that which you don't need anymore, that no longer serves you. This includes judgments and preconceived ideas about life's experiences, because by now you have taken a great journey to be sitting here right now in this room. Many of your twists and turns, your neighbor sitting next to you knows nothing about. Someone somewhere does, though. And you have walked with a few others here in this room through some tough and troubling times. You have faced things together. But have you? Have you missed out somewhere along the way? You weren't seen in your pain. You didn't know about someone else's pain. It was too awkward. Listen, it's okay. Today is a new day, as tomorrow also will be, to begin again, in the words of St. Benedict. Such is the nature of forgiveness, non-judgment, mercy, first to yourself, and then to others and from God. So I just want to kind of open that up a little bit. How do you respond to that? One of the things that I'm personally just exploring more of is this non-judgment to myself. What does that look like? Mercy on me. How can I have compassion and non-judgment towards another if I'm just constantly beating myself up, or I'm judging myself in a way that is not helpful, that's not nurturing? So what does that look like to have that going on in your own personal life, so that what comes out of you is this compassion and non-judgment? I mean, part of me wants to say, well, that's a lifetime, right? That's just a lifetime of learning or experience. And then I mentioned in this too that, okay, it's Lent, so I get to say it, that you need to have death before you always. I die daily, you've heard that before, right? What does that mean? To have nothing left to lose. What does that mean? So that all you have left is love, right? When Jesus was doing all those crazy things and the disciples go, don't touch the children, come on, don't touch the leper. What are you doing, Jesus? He had nothing left to lose. He had death before him. He only had love. That's all there is love when you have death before you. And maybe some of you have experienced like near death, either in yourself, in your own experience, or a loved one, or you've seen someone die and you've seen that letting go, and you've witnessed all there is left is love. All your accomplishments, everything about who you are, what you did, it doesn't matter. Jesus said when he sent the 70, or how many did he send out? He sent them out, he says, get rid of everything and just go. So how do we cast that off? How do we embrace that? Do you want to follow Jesus? I think Bruce Herman has said that many times, I don't know about following Jesus. This is not that easy. It's tricky. Death? But like I said, it's Lent, so you might as well embrace it, right? 'Cause we're heading there. So what are your thoughts on that? What's percolating in you when I'm reading that, or I'm, sharing that? What does that mean when you have nothing left to lose and only love to gain? What does that mean? Yes, Bruce.
Well, the first thing that came to my mind when you were reading this wonderful thing that you just read for us is the difference between shame and guilt. I mean, we are guilty, that's a fact. But you can be forgiven your guilt. But shame is something you do to yourself. And I don't know about others here, but I have never felt shamed by Christ, ever. And the woman caught in adultery was never shamed by him. She was guilty. But some of the men standing there, they wanted to cast stones at her, and but Jesus forgave. So I think that knowing the difference between guilt and shame is really key.
So the difference between shame and guilt. Yeah, you're guilty, no shame, no judgment. Yeah. Yes, Jan.
I think it's in Philippians, but it's been a help to me at times when things come that, and I would say the evil one is very good at saying, remember, remember, remember. And we do. But Paul says, forgetting those things that are past, I press on. He didn't say, I have forgotten. It's an ongoing tense, forgetting. The remembering comes, the forgetting based on the acceptance of Christ's forgiveness. I press on.
So embracing the forgiveness of Christ, pressing forward, not looking back, but there's a remembering, but an embracing of forgiveness. Any other thoughts about that? And especially in relationship to our relationship to one another, right? This is a big impact that happens when your life is so moved by this very powerful forgiveness, this very powerful non-judgment, this have mercy on yourself, Christ have mercy on me. How does that impact our ability to relate to one another and to be a companion in the time of suffering? So, okay, just sit with that. Just sit, because that's deep, that's big. And so, yes, Amy.
Something you had said at the beginning of your comments of you were trying to be more gracious with yourself.
Yes.
And it made me think something that a surgeon actually said to me, because we can all be very, what, I have to do this and that. She's like, talk to yourself as you would talk to a girlfriend. Of like, you don't need to worry about this. This is not important. And so the idea of being merciful, being gracious to yourself.
Yes.
Like, take the time.
Yep.
Calm down. Yeah.
So being gracious to yourself as if you were your your own best friend. And there is a meditation that I have practiced once in a while and need to do more, but within the larger meditation is this idea of holding yourself as if you are your only child, right? As if you are your only child. And what does that feel like? That I'm holding myself as if I am my only child. What kind of compassion and care goes with that? And then how does that, ooze out, so to speak? How does that translate into the person you're with? Is this still happening with that person? As you are holding yourself, or Christ is holding you, God is holding you in this way. So, lot to consider and think about, right? Yes, Bill.
So, I'm painfully aware of a situation in another church in which there is great division, and the division is prompting a lot of poison, but it comes out of deep suffering. So I'm wondering if there's some things to administer Christian care to those who are suffering and in their suffering emitting toxins. One example is that I have a friend who, because of a construction project, suddenly has neighbors immediately above them, living above them for 9 months. A couple who've been very involved in this schism. And my friend is trying to be an Irenic voice. And yet, what do you do other than pass somebody on the stairway, ignoring them other than to say good morning? Any ideas
Oh,
about that?
yeah, this is a great segue, Bill. Bill's talking about a really seems to be a most difficult situation where there's a divisive element among a community, but underneath that is suffering. There's something else going on, which is usually the case, right? There's an underbelly story. I know that's my experience. Like, this manifests, but what's here? So in the book, there is this little section called "Naming the Elephant." So let's see what is said, if it is helpful or not. And so that's in the chapter "Simple." If you have a book, "Simple and Profound." If you don't worry about it. So in the chapter "Simple and Profound," it's just about practical ways of being a companion and helping others. So, and we've already touched on many of the things, which genuine prayer, which we've kind of talked about a little bit, and showing up, just being with people in the car, sitting across the table. So naming the elephant. And so, I think that's one of the hardest things, or it's challenging. And how do we do that? How do we, do you talk about this part, the divisiveness thing, or do you go how do you get to the reality, right? So here is just talking about, you need to recognize that there's an elephant in the room, or there's an issue, and then they talk about how people kind of bypass that elephant, and so there's examples of people in the book who feel bypassed. They don't feel like no one's talking about my friend's suicide, or nobody's talking about this death, no one's talking about this divorce, or so there's all in the front of the book, all these different, nobody wants to talk about it, and people act as though nothing has happened. So the book is saying a simple but very profound act of care that you can offer to a suffering person is to name the elephant. And they make a joke note that this isn't about naming the mouse or the pet dog, it's the elephant. So daring to speak about it, don't pretend it's not there. So naming the elephant, saying all that is one thing, but what is the elephant, right? How do we get there with someone? And I think over time we might get there. It says the hurting person might also name their own elephant before you do. So how do you have that conversation that helps them to be the one to say what the elephant is? How does that happen? And they give examples like, I hear you, I hear that phrase, I hear you receive bad news, or I hear there's whatever is the situation. You might be, I hear there's this struggle, and then maybe through that question, you get to that next bit that goes a little bit deeper. It says, when hurting people refer to the situations causing their own suffering, they strongly desire to have their pain acknowledged. And when you pick up on those cues, so it's about being with that person so that you know, like, are you listening? That's the big Stevens, are you listening for those cues? You'll be the kind of person whom people feel comfortable naming their elephant. So I don't know if that's helpful in answering that particular question, Bill. What do you think? What about naming the elephant? Do you have the right to name the elephant? Yes.
I think that the key would be to be very timely to know when to name the elephant, when the elephant is present, and it may not be received that well if the elephant has passed. It's something, if it has been resolved somehow, then naming the elephant, past elephant, would not be a good idea.
So timing, you're talking, timing, and if the situation has resolved itself without you having to have that conversation, you don't need to rename.
Don't need to bring it up.
Don't need to bring it up. Okay. So what do you think of that? Yes, Bruce.
Sometimes there's a herd of elephants.
A herd of elephants.
I mean,
Oh
it's
no.
complicated, really complicated, like the
Yes.
thing that Bill's referring to.
Yes, really, it could be a really complicated situation. Yes.
I don't feel like I have the social emotional intelligence to figure something like that out. So in situations like that, I find myself being the person that just like says hello in the stairway and keeps going and doesn't know what words to say, how to time it correctly, and so it becomes an avoidance issue. And there's maybe a confidence thing there, but when it comes down to it, it's sort of an innate deficiency. Like I have other strengths, I have intelligence in other areas, but that's one area where I don't. And so, am I the right person to name the elephant?
Right. So do you have, or are you that person that needs to do that naming of the elephant? Do you have the skills? If not, and I think that what you're saying is a really good reminder about who are you and what is your skill set. I mean, we can be trained really well in Stephen's ministry, but creatively, you're all different. You're all unique, and you all have, like I mentioned in this little reading, you all have something really different to offer. And so maybe you don't have the intuitive skills that are social, emotional, and you're able to read the situation. Maybe that's just not your skill set. Even if you're fully trained, and it might be really hard. But I think the recognition of your giftings and what you have, which they talk about, there are many ways to bring healing and bring inroads into the people that you're in companionship with. Susan?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think it is, I think we could say that it's better for the person to name their own elephant. And certainly safer for us. But if you're going to name it, you need to be prepared for what's coming. Because they've been hiding this perfectly visible elephant for a long time, probably, and that implies a lot of pain and other stuff. So I would do that with extreme caution, but to encourage the other person to be comfortable enough to say, well, what is at the center of this for you?
Right. So if we're going to be in the business of naming the elephant or, naming issues, we need to be ready for the next bit and how we relate with that person. Yeah.
Excuse me, thought I had is that that may not be the way you start the conversation. If you're meeting with someone, say, it's like lost a child suddenly, you might, after you've had a conversation, kind of talk more specifically, but I think there's a big difference between walking up to that person and saying, how are you doing? I'm thinking of you versus, how are you doing having lost your child? I mean, you couldn't do that.
Right. And yeah, so, you just don't come in and go, hey, I heard you just had this horrible tragedy. How you doing? Ease into it. Yeah. Yes, Nick.
I think sometimes people don't know what the elephant is. And you just say, do you want to tell me what's going on? And they're so happy to unburden, but they don't know what the elephant is. But then you can also sort of help them say, wow, it sounds like you're having a lot of trouble with your boss or whatever, that you can help them sort of focus in on what the underlying problem is besides all the symptoms of the problem.
Right.
And then it's easier for them to name it. Or if you're a friend, you might be able to name it as, you'd have to play that by ear.
Right. So sometimes we don't know what the elephant is, right? And it might be revealed through the course of a conversation that's a sensitive conversation that says, tell me more, or do you want to tell me more? And it just helps the person themselves to reflect and find their way through it. So this is not a quick fix, right? This is not about, one and done. No, this is an ongoing process that we have as a community here, and all the communities that you come from and that you live with, that you work with. It's, and we live in a world of one and done, don't we? Quick fix, if you do this, then this will happen. It doesn't quite work like that. Life is messy. Life is just a lot more messy than that. So patience, right? Lots of patience and lots of holding that only child, right? And just staying. Yes, Kathy.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
In terms of what Bill was talking about, if you're in a situation in a group like that where there's sort of sides, let's assume that there's some sides, and you literally are walking past a person every day saying, good morning, and keeping going, maybe the way to start something would be to go outside of your own comfort zone of just saying good morning and keeping going, and stopping just for an instant. It won't be the time on the staircase, so it's again back to timing. But to say to that person, I feel this heaviness, or whatever words you want to use. I feel that we're having an issue. Can we set aside a time at your convenience, my convenience, and listen to each other? Maybe not even use the word talk.
Right.
Like, can we get together and listen to each other?
Right. So Kathy's referring to one of the chapters in here, in one of the highlights of acknowledgement. No, you didn't even know it, right? Just acknowledging something.
Maybe we don't know what the elephant is, like Nick said.
Yeah.
Acknowledging that there is an elephant, and can we talk about it?
Yeah. Acknowledging something about the relationship and not like head on into it at that moment, but the acknowledgement can lead you to a further time together, further meeting. So, thank you. And just the overview, this is just for you to kind of look at, because I feel like we've really dug kind of deep here today. We've really, at least touched on going deep. Because like I said, this is a lifelong, be patient with yourself and be patient with those that you're living among. So are there any, on this back page here, you know, where it highlights chapters, the last 2 chapters, is there anything that you're looking at it and go like, okay, what does that mean? Or have we talked about it? Anything else that you might want to touch on that, that is highlighted here in the back page? The reminiscing thing, I just want to touch on a little bit, and this kind of has to do with being alongside someone in a time of loss. I think oftentimes, more than not, people really want to talk about their family or their friend or whatever, whoever they've lost. I think people really, I don't know, that was my experience in losing someone near and dear, that I just needed to keep talking about it. And after a while I thought, oh gosh, are people getting sick of me talking about this? But, you know, it's part of the process of grief and loss to just keep telling that story over and over, and it helps that person to keep alive that person in their heart, and to just to process, you know, like, what did happen? Because it's happening to you inside, you know, that you're feeling something. Yes, Bill.
So the heart overhead, the 3rd bullet at the top of the
Yeah.
second page, speaks to something that, at least for 50% of us, particularly the men,
Okay.
but maybe for all of us, doesn't come naturally. We're kind of wired, I mean, maybe I'm wrong to describe men this way, but I think a lot of us are wired to look for a fix. And in every situation, to have the head over the heart, and have the head be practical and targeted at a solution. But there are many problems where the solution is not really at hand. Patrick will be preaching about my hour. There are a lot of things where it's not at hand. How might we overcome our own practicality and place heart overhead in our daily life with those who suffer?
Wonderful question. So he's talking about head over heart, or heart over, heart overhead. How do we lead with our heart and not, I gotta fix it, you know, or just trying to figure it out? How do we come to a place of practicing that with ease? I invite you to come to our centering prayer group. I think that your own personal prayer life, your own meditation, practice, whatever that is, I think that is a great place to start practicing your heart responding. And you know, your heart responding in relationship to God, you know, opening up that tenderness. That's one thought on that. Anybody have another thought on heart over head? How do we? It's not a quick fix. It's not something. Yeah.
Yeah, as someone who also feels a strong compulsion to fix things and organize them, I think part of it is, for me, has been sort of like having faith that I don't need to be the one to figure it out, that a resolution will come in a way that maybe I don't understand. And that's hard.
Yeah, it's not all up to you to fix this. It's not all up to you to be the only companion or the only person alongside this person. It's just a really good point. Because I know in my experience with my care receiver, who has a lot of different people in her life that are having all this really positive input. It's not just me. I'm one person in her life that's supporting her. So, yeah, it's not about you, sorry. It's, whatever that process is for that person, or for even yourself. It's not, and that's kind of like the other side of it. It's like, do you think that one person is going to fix your problem or make you feel better? One person? I don't think so. I think it's much broader than that. There might be in one period of time, one person, but there have been a lot of other relationships along the way that brought you to that place to be able to receive from the next person, right? It's not chunk, 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 chunk. It's like this fluid. It's fluid. But yeah, you're released from being the one. You are released. So at the bottom, this is a great discussion, and you guys have been great, and we haven't really bypassed the book, even though I haven't gone and you have told me what's in the book today, which is really awesome. And so I just have an exercise. You don't have to do it now. You could just take this sheet home with you and think about writing a blessing to yourself. What would that sound like? What would that look like? A blessing to yourself. Or from God. What is God's blessing to you? What is God's blessing to you? And then what would be your blessing to someone else that's suffering, that you're walking along? What does that blessing look like? You can call that prayer if you want, but sometimes a blessing is easier than saying, let's pray. It might be, let me leave you with a blessing, right? Let me just leave you with a blessing, which if you haven't seen this book, it's called To Bless the Space Between Us by John O'Donohue. It's a wonderful, wonderful book of blessings for many things that are on the list in our book here, but it is, and there are a lot of blessing books out there. Jan Richardson also has a book called The Cure for Sorrow. Jan Richardson, The Cure for Sorrow. And that's a book of blessings. It was written in response to her husband's death. And they're blessings for people that are on that same journey of loss. You can look at this later, or when when we're wrap it up here. My list of
Something just fell on the floor.
Oh, it's a joke. So we'll leave it there for now. So John O'Donohue, Blessing the Space Between Us. There's a book called Poetry of Presence. I was going to read more, but you guys, you did the reading. You did it today. So, but this book called The Poetry of Presence is just fantastic. It's just got, maybe I'll read one short one in here, a poem by Ellen Bass called The Thing Is, and it's about grief. The thing is to love life, to love it even when you have no stomach for it, and everything you've held dear crumbles like burnt paper in your hands, your throat filled with the silt of it. When grief sits with you, its tropical heat, thickening the air, heavy as water, more fit for gills than lungs. When grief weights you like your own flesh, only more of it, an obesity of grief. You think, how can a body withstand this? Then you hold life like a face between your palms, a plain face, no charming smile, no violet eyes, and you say, yes, I will take you. I will love you again. It's just an example of a great poem. Yes, Susan.
Speaking of grief,
Yes.
we have some wonderful resources in Stephen Ministry that are accessible to you all, to anyone who would like them. There's a series of 4 books, little pamphlets that we send out periodically to someone who has had a deep loss. I have those with me if you'd like to see them. There's also a book called Cancer, What Now? And it has been extremely useful to
Thank you. So books are available on all these topics, cancer, grief, different kinds of loss. Stephen Ministry books are available. So talk to Mother Susan about that if you need that. And we've received those grief books, which are really great. So,
I
yes.
can vouch that the grief books were very helpful to my care receiver. When she was widowed, she was very impressed with them, and she's a tough cookie. She's not easy to impress.
All right, so Leslie had a positive experience with those grief books as well, with her care receiver. Yeah. Yes, Dean.
I find it intriguing that on this day of Ireland's festival, that one of the most powerful contributions that comes out of Celtic Christianity
Mm-hmm.
is the plethora of blessings.
Yes. Yep.
And it's ironic when you think of the environment in which those blessings emerge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Out of great pain, blessings come. Yes.
Exceptional pain.
Yeah.
And small country, vast contribution. And I think it's something that you've encapsulated
Mm-hmm.
for us.
Mm-hmm.
A blessing, yeah.
Yeah. So out of our own suffering come great blessings that we can give to others. Yeah. I'm just going to close with St. Patrick's breastplate. Christ above us, Christ beneath us, Christ beside us, Christ within us. Invisible we see you, Christ above us. With earthly eyes we see above us, clouds or sunshine, gray or bright. But with the eye of faith we know you reign, instinct in the sun ray, speaking in the storm, warming and moving all creation. Christ above us, invisible we see you, Christ beneath us. With earthly eyes we see beneath us stones and dust and dross. But with the eyes of faith we know you uphold. In you, all things consist and hang together. The very atom is light energy. The grass is vibrant. The rocks pulsate. All is in flux. Turn but a stone and an angel moves. Underneath are the everlasting arms. Unknowable we know you, Christ beneath us. Inapprehensible we know you, Christ beside us. With earthly eyes we see men and women, exuberant or dull, tall or small. But with the eye of faith, we know you dwell in each. You are imprisoned in the dope fiend and the drunk, dark in the dungeon, but you are there. You are released, resplendent in the loving mother, the passionate bride, and in every sacrificial soul. Inapprehensible, we know you, Christ beside us. Intangible, we touch you, Christ within us. With earthly eyes, we see ourselves, dust of the dust, earth of the earth, but with the eye of faith, we know ourselves all girt about of eternal stuff, our minds capable of divinity, our bodies groaning, waiting for the revealing, our souls redeemed, renewed. Intangible, we touch you, Christ within us, Christ above us, beneath us, beside us, within us. What need have we for temples made with hands? And that is an interpretation by George MacLeod from Ireland, Patrick's Lorita. Thank you all so much.